Well, nothing lasts forever, and what was a great start to the season seems a distant memory as the Saints handed the Hawks a 69-point reality check. Still, there were some positives to be plucked from the contest, and we're going to get to them right here on the Hawk Talk podcast. My name is Nick Mason, and tis, my boy Mitch contributed pretty well, even when the chips were down. He got the ups.
Yes, yeah, that was the moment worth staying for. It was a very good mark, though. And he did it in a sort of consummate ease style. I'm just down the park with a few of the lads, and I'll just show you how to do this. And I enjoyed Connor McDonald's immediate fanboy reaction, which was sort of subdued a little bit, but he loved it, didn't he?
Gee, I might have needed a bit more from Connor McDonald than a fanboy reaction on the afternoon. That's okay. He's a fourth game player. I won't go too hard.
I thought Connor was one of the... You're talking about plucking out the positives. I thought he was one of the players to show some pluck. There are a few that did not.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, he can walk off proud enough with his efforts at least, even if he didn't have massive influence. I do want to stay with Mitch Lewis, though, because he is the story here. He's averaging 3 goals a game at the moment. And when you contribute in that way, even to a losing side, he's a bit wayward in front of goal on this particular occasion. But Tiz, you've got to be happy with what he's putting out there.
Yeah, he's saying I'm the main man, and in a strange game from Jack Gunston, who just didn't seem to get near it all day and gave away a couple of free kicks and frustration. Mitch Lewis really stood tall and tried to impose himself on the contest. Had he kicked a couple of goals going into half-time, and I think Warple missed one himself, it would have given us a bit of a sniff. But as it was, they missed, and Hawthorn went into their shells a bit. And then, interestingly, Sammy decided that the midfield needed a change-up, resulting in the next man on the list here, Tommy Mitchell, getting his most touches for a long time, 32, at 84% disposal efficiency, mate.
I wonder why that was the case. Could we crunch the numbers and sift through the stats to work out why his disposal efficiency might have been so good?
No. Let's not break that down, because that's one of the nice stats we can pluck. We don't need to analyse it until we don't enjoy the fact that it was 22 handballs and, but 9 score involvements, mate.
Yeah.
5 intercepts. That's a big game from Tom.
It is. Look, we needed something like that. Someone had to get involved, and 9 score involvements is an equal team high. 5 intercepts, 5 inside 50s. I mean, he's trying.
And overlooked for MVP on the channels for a bloke that only, put up 47% disposal efficiency. But with his 23 touches, John Newcomb, he just added energy to the lineup, didn't he? It was it didn't come off very often. But
no, well, it came off less than 50% of the time, Tiz, according to the stats.
Even less than that, I'd hasten to say. But it was the willingness of the kid that you've got to admire. Like, in the face of Jaeger and Warple going missing, and I would have to say Impey was completely underdone. Question marks over whether Day is underdone too, because that was uncharacteristic, what happened to him. It was just a really poor day. None of the lines worked. As soon as the defensive unit decided that we should probably start attacking in this game, they were immediately found out. It's just the whole day didn't work out from go to woe. Apart from the first 2 goals to Dylan Moore, and I was up and about. I thought, how good is this kid?
Dylan Moore, he did fade from the game, obviously, pretty severely after that. That's to be expected. I mean, what a hot start. The hottest of starts. But I thought otherwise he's a reasonably good contributor. But I think you're right. This is the sort of game where probably the first time this year, or at least in the home and away season, where you felt like there's just no connection. There's no real palpable team spirit out there. It's just not working for us today.
The wings. Oh my God, the wings. What are you going to do about the wings? It'd keep, I would imagine going to this game, Sammy was most concerned about Brad Hill, the ruck division. And I've got to say, Reeves, he kicked a goal. He had quite an impact on the contest. This was a very good game from Reeves.
Yeah, this is a contest you can give him an honourable mention, for sure.
Up against Marshall and Ryder, who wasn't match fit, I'd probably say, but him drifting forward was just too much for our defence. We're not tall enough. We've got to find out whether Hardigan is well enough or capable enough of playing on on Easter Monday. But I would have to give Reeves and Nash, a commendation on how well they tried, because although they were beaten, Nash didn't give up and got better throughout the contest. I mean, 2 tackles to his name, but he never wants to be in the ruck again. You can see it. He's waiting for another ruckman to come in the side. This is not what he's enjoying. But
nor should Nash be in the ruck either. That's not how we want to use him. We'll use him in the midfield just fine, but we need to release him from that role ASAP. We'll obviously get to team selection soon. I thought of the backmen, it was a dirty day for the defenders. Probably one of the dirtiest we can even remember as Hawks fans in recent memory. James Sicily, at the very least, I think used the footy well. I think he topped our disposal efficiency. Jack Scrimshaw, I want to give an honourable mention to as well. But it seemed as though Brett Radham was just all over what we were trying to do. He had us sussed out, and he communicated with his players accordingly. They snuffed out everything we were trying to do. I mean, and Mitchell mentioned this in his post-match presser, 9 blunders in our defensive 50. It's not just skill error. It was St Kilda being able to anticipate exactly what we were trying to do, and we didn't adjust, ever. We never learned.
No, that was concerning, that during the match there weren't any real or noticeable adjustments. The fact is that we were undermanned for big bodies. 3 tall targets down there meant that we couldn't intercept with ease, and then Gresham and Hill, they had space. Gresham's very intelligent with the footy. Bradley Hill, we didn't seem to have anyone who was willing to run with Bradley, which, is how he's made his career. Just running over the back. And I still love Bradley Hill. I think he's coming for some real pain, and people have been very disappointed in his output, but he can break the game, and he did. He broke the game open for them. But our wingmen lacked that. We never got pace on the ball. Our ball movement, only when St Kilda were tiring did it look any good. Look, the one real positive to come out of this match is we still had 23 shots and kicked 10 goals, 13, 73. That's a very high score for Hawthorn recently.
Oh, absolutely. And I think you look at St Kilda, and obviously this is a game where, 142 points, their firepower was superb. We still managed 73 in what was a pretty rough day at the office. And a guy like Mitch Lewis, as I say, 3 goals, 5, he converts a bit better. That's looking at, 5, 6, 7 goals, which you'd take any day of the week. He's becoming he used to be simply consistent. He hit the scoreboard every week. That's what we enjoyed about Mitch. But now he's doing it and giving opposition teams a lot to worry about. I think all he needs now, mate, is a couple of friends out there to hit the scoreboard with him.
And the fact that if he had kicked truly, you get some scoreboard pressure.
Yeah.
So are we going to do this? Have we got a line up for people we want to put on blast? Or
absolutely we do. You can't lose in that manner. 69 points. It could have been worse. Absolutely. Could have been much worse than that. And I think it'd be remiss of us not to at least highlight some players that we were dissatisfied with. I mean, we're all about balance here on the Hawk Talk podcast.
James Worpel. What is going on with him?
We had a question from one of our listeners, Fusa. What has happened to Worpel's development? He was a pet project of Sammy's, it seemed. 5 touches for a match is hopefully the lowest point of his career. He looked desperately low on confidence. Would a lockdown role work to give him some direction? And Af wonders, goes a step further. One of our listeners, Af, is Worpel on the trade table?
So the question really is, how does Worpel go from being a best and fairest in the absence of Tom Mitchell to this? Let's say he had a bad game, but his month hasn't been fabulous. Sunday was dreadful. I've never seen him play so badly, be out of position so often. The question is, can they play in the same team? Worpel obviously doesn't have a secondary role that suits him in the lineup. How can we develop Worpel into being what we need at Hawthorn in the firsts? Do we drop him to Box Hill? Make sure he can play a different role there. I think he'll stand out too much. It won't be good for his development there. He has stagnated. The half-forward line doesn't suit him. The half-forward line doesn't suit Mitchell. It doesn't suit O'Meara. It's a real struggle.
Correct. And when I'm standing in M10, mate, and the siren goes and I look at where people are lining up and I see either O'Meara, Warple or Mitchell in that forward line, I'm like, it's not going to work. They can't do it. They have no potency in that position. And it's annoying that either one of them always gets saddled with that role. I think it's such a waste.
Can you enlighten me as to where Dan Howe was lining up?
No.
I thought we could have used him on ball, really, but I never saw any influence from him.
Yeah.
There's some real problems that have been masked by a really well-performing backline. As soon as they're under pressure and they can't hit up targets, it means that the midfield is really exposed again because you can't get that transition, and it just stops. Our forward 50 entries were way too easy to stop, and then we were caught on the rebound because we overindulged in the number of bodies we sent forward. So with Warple, you just got to persist with it. Unless Sammy thinks, look, Shields would put in a better effort.
I think the issue is, the thing that you got to weigh up is that Liam Shields is obviously not really the future of this club. We know he's a quality player. He's top tier. He has the credits in the bank. So, I mean, you could pick him, but you got to understand that it's not really the way forward in any real meaningful way. However, that being said,
you got to set standards.
Exactly right. You got to set standards, and I don't want ours to be a team where they persist with a midfield that, frankly, is not feared. This is not a midfield to be feared in any way, and Warple is part of that midfield and gets 5 touches. I mean, come on. You got to. There is a time where you got to say, we want to try something else. This rebuild is in its infancy. And you got to start taking those chances now and see, well, who have we got? If you're not going to do it, if you can't get it done, then who else have we got? Do we start playing Finn as a pure midfielder more? Do we bring up Ned Long for his debut?
Now, look, Finn came in, 13 touches, was it?
Mm-hmm.
Looked fine. Looked like he could handle the bumps. Looks like he could handle the physicality of the St Kilda midfield. Maintained possession fairly well.
It gave a hell of a lot more than Warple in limited game time because he came on for Will Day and Finn McGuinness eclipsed Warple's output very easily.
Yeah, I mean, different roles and that, but still, he got his hands on the footy. Now, I would say that Josh Ward and Connor McDonald tried very hard, but they look like they're tiring a little bit. I don't know what happened to Jack Gunston, but probably forgive him.
Well, it's hard not to forgive him, given everything we've seen from Gunners, but 3 touches.
What I would say is, if you drop Wingard and you bring in Dan Howe, and Dan Howe has no impact, I don't see why you should have brought in either Jekka or Kajitsky and had a third tall up there to bring the ball to ground. That get-out kick, because if we didn't have a get-out kick the whole weekend. That's what made the scoreline so harsh, because we just couldn't pump it down and get it out of play. So I think this week we have to bring in a tall. We probably have to make a statement with Warple. And certainly Phillips looked excellent in the VFL. He was easily best on. It's not all doom and gloom. I mean, it's just St Kilda. They've tailed us up a couple of the last years as well. It's kind of strange that we go to water against them.
It is especially odd. The thing about the Saints, though, is I don't think they're much chop, which is funny for me to say when a team piles on 142 points for a game. Most teams would have done what St Kilda did against us, the way we were playing, some of the decisions we were making.
We kept giving the ball back.
Oh, directly feeding them goals. Like the amount of kicks to them, like straight to the opposition and handballs. It was probably the worst defensive display I've seen in some time in terms of, direct turnover goals. But look, any team would have punished us the same way, just about. So I don't really fear St Kilda. However, they do appear to be our bogey side, unfortunately, for whatever reason. We've got a few questions here. This first one from Mark. Love your work, Nick and Tiz. Thanks very much, Mark. Just want your thoughts on Jaeger O'Meara and his leadership. Playing-wise, he's struggling. However, he's really important for the young crew with Big Boy out. I liked him standing up to Ryder after the day hit, and then he got us a nice retaliation 50.
Yeah, it's good to see that standing up for Day. So Ryder's got 2 weeks,
As well he should.
and we'll be lucky to see Will Day for a couple of weeks, I would imagine. I don't really want to be this critical of the selection committee at this stage, but Impey looked completely underdone, and he wasn't gelling at all well with that back line. I would say he should have had another week at VFL.
It certainly seems like it, yeah.
Will Day, uncharacteristic in the last couple of games, didn't look particularly good at VFL, I'd have to say, and got elevated. And now we lose him for a couple of weeks. Wings, definitely underdone. Got a couple of goals out of him, luckily, for 2 weeks. Now he's gone. I don't know what's going on with John, but he doesn't look fit. Shields didn't look fit, got dropped. Still didn't look fit in the VFL. He'll probably get elevated. And then you've got Nash drifting forward as well as playing in the ruck. He's the third tall in the forward line. I'm not exactly loving some of these selections or these, there's a theme there where Phillips is fit and overlooked for some reason, whereas I could have seen much more out of Phillips than Howe on the weekend. And look, I know it's a youth policy. Phillips ain't that old. He probably wasn't doing the team things though, I don't know. But there's just a bit of a theme there that blokes that Sammy thinks should be in the lineup get back in before they're necessarily good enough to play.
I'm just concerned that, it's the names and some of the reputations, established reputations of these players that let them float on through to, say, maybe even round 7 or 8 before serious questions have started to be asked of them. O'Meara being one of them. He hasn't set the world on fire in any game this year, but he'll get picked next week, I've no doubt.
His acceleration's gone.
Yeah.
Accelerating away from the contest. He even had that last year. That's sort of gone. But look, Sammy's going to get plenty of time, so we're going to see everything he wants out of these boys. But I just think he's been a little bit premature in bringing a couple of these guys or leaving them in the lineup. And he'll work that out. But I really want to see Long at some point get a game. I'm not sure if it's against Geelong, but he looks like he could be anything, and I don't want him to turn into a VFL player. Please, just elevate him, and we'll watch all the mistakes. I don't mind.
By the end of the clash against the Cats, we could be saying, gee, Long.
Oh, no.
It's much too early for that nonsense. We had a question from Numo here. Do we have a replacement for Chad in the forward line? On the weekend, we used Nash at times, which was like reverting back to the old days. Would we consider a Butler to add a different dynamic to the forward line, or is it still too early? Well, a Butler would give us silver service, Tiz.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's not up to silver service quality in the VFL yet, but, all signs are good from Butler. There's other fellas like Saunders.
Didn't play last week for whatever reason. Seamus Mitchell also out of the VFL lineup.
Yeah, it was disappointing. I was looking out for them. So I rolled into the VFL, watched that, got to 3/4 time of the AFL, and I'm thinking, this is exactly the scoreline reversed. What is going on here? It was peculiar.
Well, do you want to jump ahead to the Box Hill stuff?
Absolutely. We won that game, Nick. Let's go.
We have other listener questions to get to, but we'll try and circle back around to them. This was good stuff from Box Hill. After back-to-back defeats to open the season, they're on the board. They secured a strong 43-point win over Sandringham. And you got to say, Tiz, they made the most of the Zebras' poor disposal efficiency, particularly in that first half, and really punished them on the scoreboard. It was a solid, if unremarkable, performance overall, but sometimes that's all you need. You just need to get a good win.
Yeah, look, they made it clear early that they were there to win. Sandy just missed so many opportunities; it was ridiculous. Became almost a laughingstock, and the Box Hill boys made the most of it. The back line looked pretty good. No one really took the game by the scruff of the neck. I know Liam Shields had 27 disposals, but it was really his tackling pressure that was the main influence on the game. He was having a lot of passes between him and Tom Phillips. There was a lot of that going on, sort of padding the numbers a bit because they could. And, Tom Phillips got 28 touches and a very, very nice goal. He sort of shimmied and shaked and stuck it through from about 45 on the angle. And lots of good stuff to like. Ball movement was fine. But the fact that they were playing on the MCG, it looked like slow motion,
Yeah,
really.
it did. Absolutely.
Because there was so much space for these guys. And they're not as quick as the AFL and they don't kickers long, and it was interesting to see the difference in that way. But Liam Shields, Tom Phillips stood out, as did Ned Long. There was one passage of play where it was just him against three Sandy players who were trying to triangulate and just get it around him, and he managed to intercept the handball twice and tackle a bloke and get it out of bounds. And it was a terrific play from a young player. And his physicality in the contest and his height and his unpredictability as a young player could be very advantageous to our midfield. Just who do you drop? That's the question.
Ned Long was very impressive for that particular passage of play that you mentioned. Just his overall endeavour I really liked. 15 touches, 3 inside 50s, and a game-high 11 tackles. So he seems to be backing up week after week, Ned Long, his tackling numbers at the very least. And, pressure is a great thing.
Another number 27 that's going to have a cult following, I'm telling you now.
I think you might be right. We had a question from Richard Rule, just wondering if Liam Shields' papers are stamped. Does he get another game at Hawthorn? Is anyone really surprised at his output here? He's not a VFL player. He was going to shine. Numo and Matt sort of wondering, do you end up picking Tom Phillips? Again, based on this game, he'd have to be in the frame for selection. In terms of the goal kickers for the day, Ben Cavara was the most prolific forward with 4 goals, 3 for Parsons, 2 for Green, and 1 goal each for Butler, Callow, Mesiti, Tom Phillips. Ed Phillips kicked a beauty from the boundary, set shot, and Jalen Thorpe. Cozzy sustained an eye injury in the opening term, which is, if you tuned in or you're at the ground, you're wondering, where the bloody hell is Jacob? That's what happened. He came off in the first term with what seemed to be an eye injury, but he's since been cleared of any serious damage. And one of our listeners, Obsessive Compulsive, wonders, my question regarding Cozzy 2 weeks ago still seems relevant. Where to for him? With Mitch seemingly ahead of him at full forward, is Cozzy now a Box Hill regular, a potential key position defender, or something else?
Well, they had him penciled in for ruck down there at Box Hill, so...
Well, I think it was out of necessity. They simply had no choice.
Yeah, I thought they managed that quite well, actually. The ruck wasn't very much of an impact on the overall contest, so... I would be calling for Cozzy this week.
Yeah, I would be. They need talls. My inclusions might be Cozzy and Lynch, in fact.
Is Lynch good to go? Because I don't want to rush someone back again. You get me?
Yeah, I get you. Lynch is expected to be right to go. I mean, he has history with concussion, so, he took a little bit of time, and then there were COVID protocols to also overcome for him to prove his fitness. So it's expected that he will be okay to go this week.
I want his touch to be good.
Well, that's it. He's not going to have any match fitness. So, there's a rolls of the dice here to be made if you want to make them. But, yeah, I agree with you. At the very least, you need a bit of tall influence. And if you're wondering, the Hawks will be in action next Sunday, April 24. They're away at Coburg in the annual Anzac Cup clash between the sides. And hopefully this is the start of something for Box Hill. They had a tough start to the season with 2 back-to-back losses. Hopefully they can get some momentum.
Yeah, wasn't it fantastic to have the doubleheader though? I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, more of that, please. And I don't really mind what combination you have. I would like to see a VFLW team there as well. I don't mind. I like curtain raisers. I grew up on curtain raisers, mate, and I would have to research why they went away, because it felt to me, being a young lad, all of a sudden they were there and then they were gone, and I missed them.
Well, it was just nice to... I go to the cricket with a book, and I attended the footy with a book this week. No, it's a more relaxed atmosphere. It's great going down to Box Hill, of course, but I did eat a bit more MCG food than I intended, having been there that long. I just
yeah, see, that's what they want.
Yeah,
and there's no Red Rooster anymore.
No, there is not. And they got rid of the old pieman. He must have been about 110. But he's no longer there, Institute of the MCC.
Didn't they bring in a company called Royal Stacks? I'm like, yeah, that's what it'll take to afford this stuff.
Oh, jeez, wow.
Comedy Festival running till April 24th.
Yeah, no, that'll get people going.
We have some questions ahead of the Hawthorn Geelong game. The MCG for Easter Monday, 3:20pm. One here from Hutcho. Tough draw ahead coming off a poor performance against the Saints. What's a pass mark for the next 3 weeks? And now the next 3 weeks, Tiz, They're not easy games.
1 week at a time, Nick.
Okay, 1 week at a time. What is a pass mark against the Cats here? I think we certainly need to be a bit more competitive and a bit less mind-boggling in some of our decision-making.
Well, look, in preparation for this clash, they obviously rested Joel Selwood, so they're really concerned about how this might go. I don't know. Look, if they learn from some of the mistakes they were making against St Kilda, that's all you can really ask of a mob that's still learning their new playing style, and also they've got some players that are still trying to get match fitness in the squad. So look, I went into the St Kilda game thinking, Hawks by how much? So what kind of really dented my confidence to see the game plan completely fail, and Brett Ratton went to task on putting the pressure. Now, do Geelong rely on that kind of pressure forward role? Not really. So he probably looked a little bit better against Geelong, to be honest.
I'm a little bit worried about their tall, hulking forwards. I don't necessarily think we have an answer to that, and I don't think Hardigan will necessarily be recalled. Lord Chester at Hook Talk Pod asks, are we missing a tall, hulking defender? Well, yeah, we are. We haven't been playing him. It's Kyle Hardigan. That's what he's there for. He'd be ideal for this game, but without any match fitness, I'm not sure we'll see him. And then if that's the case, I think we're a little vulnerable.
Oh, definitely. I think the easiest way to sort of stop our defensive line working is by having a couple more tall forwards down there. And that's exactly what they'll do. They'll drop the ruckman forward as well. But we've got to be mindful of how the ball gets in there. That's all we can do. If we're not putting pressure, and we certainly weren't against Geelong, if we're not putting pressure enough on the ball carrier, then that's it.
I absolutely agree with that. Yeah, we saw that with the Saints. If the midfield's not holding up their end of the bargain, don't do your defenders dirty, guys. They're a bloody dependable and talented defensive unit, but they can only withstand so much if you're not pulling your weight. So I hope the players look after each other there. We had a question from Stewie Bro. If Lynch isn't available, could we bring in Cozzy or Jekka to pinch hit in the ruck and offer a target resting forward, thus releasing Nash back in the midfield role who was so good for us earlier this year? Neither are proper rucks, but have a height, and releasing Nash should be a plus. I don't have much to say about this, Tiz, apart from the fact that I agree.
I wouldn't rush Lynch back, but definitely Cozzy could do some pinch hitting in the ruck. I'm not sure Jekka could. I think we see, like I said, I want Cozzy in that lineup just to give Gunston and Mitch Lewis a better matchup.
So we know that Will Day is going to be out of this lineup with concussion. We got options for ins, as we saw with Box Hill, Shields, Phillips, Long, Cozzy. It's still hard to predict, even though the options are laid out there. I still don't necessarily know who's going to make the cut, and indeed who will be omitted. If it were up to me, then Warple would be out of the side.
I mean, you could make a guess that one of Connor McDonald or Ward will be rested.
Yeah, and it's not a reflection on their performance per se, but it might be about time for either or both of them to have a rest.
And if you see an emergency button hit like Hardigan coming in with a woeful display in the VFL, hold on to your hats.
I was about to suggest that he didn't play VFL against the Zebras, but no, you're talking about round one. Yep. I might have tried to repress that, actually.
Yeah. But look, we're a young team. They can recover quickly. Like, there was a certain confidence, which I don't think was stripped from them playing St Kilda. They know that was a bad day. They know a lot of things went against them. And there was a disconnect between Impey coming back into the lineup across the half-back line. So, don't worry too much.
But the best thing against the Saints all weekend, mate, it didn't happen at the MCG. Yeah, Box Hill got the win, but it actually happened against the Southern Saints. Hawthorn VFLW, their 6th win in a row, if you don't mind.
They are the form side of that competition. No one wants to play them. They've got a terrific captain. And look, we haven't announced many AFLW signings yet, but why wouldn't you want to join this club?
Exactly, got so much going for it. We hyped this up as this side's toughest test for weeks, mate, and it really lived up to the billing. Hawthorn took on the Southern Saints and were really made to earn a 21-point win. It was an entertaining contest and very tense in particular, I think, around that, for about half hour to an hour there, where both teams tried to wrestle it back onto their terms. Dom Carbone was one of the best afield for the Hawks, but the MVP honours have to go to the captain, Tamara Luke, who finished with 3 goals. 2 of them were back-to-back to effectively see off the Saints challenge, closed the door, and it was fantastic to see. We had a question from Liam here at Hawk Talk Pod. On a scale of 1 to very, how excited are we about the entry into the AFLW? Bridget Deed comes 4th in the NAB League, best and fairest, and is named in the Team of the Year. Looks to be a star in the making. Liam, I'm very excited, evidently. I watch every game that I can at the moment. I stream it live, and why wouldn't you? When they've won 6 in a row, I'm riding the wave, and I would encourage people to not sleep on this team. Do not sleep on Hawthorn entering the AFLW. I think it's going to be more exciting than people are anticipating.
It is absolutely magnificent. And we've seen off Gill as well. He's noticed. Hawthorn are going to dominate this competition, and he's like, I'm not here for this. And off he goes. Gill's gone.
Yeah, you had to stand and watch us receive the Premiership Cup, 3 years running? He's like, I don't want to do this again.
The body language was magnificent.
I'll never forget that. That was terrific. Look, my hope for the AFLW side at this point is I just need more signings. I think it was yesterday I saw that Sydney had signed another 3 players all in one hit, and I'm like, well, we've signed 3 total. I think they've signed at least 6 that I can think of. 3 were poached from us. So I want to continue riding that wave. So more, please. More VFLW, more AFLW. I'm excited for the future. And all these games are being streamed, by the way. So if you do want to get on board, you can very easily do so. And in much the same way as you do have your favourites for Box Hill, you have your favourites for the senior side, you'll absolutely get acquainted with these players very quickly, and you'll come to love the way that they play and apply themselves. And it's going to be real exciting to see what happens next. Yeah,
it's a storyline that'll pay off well, I think. Even if they are going to be a first-year squad, I think they're going to be, a very good representation of how Hawthorn want to be playing women's footy.
The team will next be hosted by Williamstown at Downer Oval. Let's hope it's not a downer for our Hawks tiers, who look to win their 7th in a row. I believe that's 3rd, taking on 8th, so still a reasonably good challenge. But, from what I've seen week to week, I back him in.
Now, we've got some rumours and innuendo to finish the pod. How exciting. And now we welcome Caro onto the pod.
Oh, that would be... What a get, first of all.
No, thank you.
Not welcome here?
Look, I don't have a lot of time for Caro, and it took Robbo to muckrake just as much, and he went off to Michael Long. And, apparently families don't get along, Nick. Is this what Cyril needed? Is this what Hawthorn needed? Just sounds like a couple of little social grenades that Michael Long's chucking in. I mean, I don't see that Cyril really owes him all that much, but apparently Michael feels aggrieved.
Oh, look, there's as 2 middle-aged white men, there's only so much I feel like we can comment on this story. I suspect we're a bit out of our depth. I don't know. That's just my suspicion. But look, Michael Long has spoken out about Cyril Rioli, saying that he hasn't been in contact with him for 4 years and believes that Rioli needs professional help, was the quote, to address issues in his life, which was an interesting little, twist in the tale.
Drive-by?
Well, it was a drive-by, certainly, and it complicated the issue that we brought up on last week's podcast, the much publicised rift with the Rioli camp and the Hawks and everything that was mentioned in Caro's article.
The headline, "Man Doesn't Get Along with Uncle," I think definitely deserves front page of the paper.
Again, I think there might be familial ties that might take on a little bit more significance than we have an understanding of. That's my suspicion here. So I'm not going to dismiss it outright. This quote from Michael Long, "We love our nephew, but we've seen the change in our nephew, and it's not the way we've brought him up," he told the Herald Sun. "We've brought him up to have respect, but that's changed and he needs to get professional help. A lot of people helped Cyril along the way, and there are a lot of family and friends who got Cyril to where he got to, and he became estranged to a lot of family and friends. As a man, he needs to stand up and take control of his life."
I mean, this is just a horrible and non-supportive act from Michael Long, and if Cyril is struggling to find himself after a career in football, as many do, thousands of footy players have that struggle. Is Michael helping? And I think the answer to that is a definitive no, he is not. And no, I'm on Cyril's side. Michael Long should shut his mouth if he's looking to help Cyril at all, other than this sort of power manoeuvre. He might need help. Michael might be right, but this is not how you approach this.
Yeah, 100% agree with that. The odd silver lining to all of this is that article, it sort of took the edge off all the negative Hawthorn PR of late. I'm like, oh, thanks, Michael. That's actually, you've done us a good service there. You've sort of taken the heat off us just a smidge. But you're right. This is not the way to go about it. You don't want this to play out in the press. I mean, if he is seriously in dire straits, then this is not how you do right by him.
Well, you're right. I mean, Michael Long basically came out and said the Kennett confrontation was a nothing. And, you know, he completely derided that. Luke Hodges come out and says he felt all issues were dealt with in his time. And so all the allegations and whatever Cyril's feeling have been denied him. You know, so now it's a sad state of affairs for Cyril because he's lost family support. There's people in the public that don't support him. The club, he denies any support from them. And he's become estranged from some great mates he made during footy. So we all feel for Cyril and, you know, but you're right. It looks like the club sat on their hands, trying not to come out in, and, you know, what am I trying to say? They're not looking to confront him. They just look to look past the moment and look to a future where Cyril's back in the fold and happy, and they want to get him there. And they understand that they probably, you know, the lack of influence the club can have now is you know, what can they really do? There's not a lot.
I don't know. They've got to earn his, I don't know, trust and commitment to the club back, and I'm not necessarily sure how they do that. I mean, I said it last week. I think the only way to do that is in consultation with the people that this affects, and that is Indigenous people. That's Cyril himself. I think they have to collaborate with the club in guiding some sort of solution here, because the club can't do it itself. I think they'll just be fumbling around in the dark, not knowing how to do anything about this.
That would be my solution. I would tell Cyril, what would you like to do? Give him some autonomy in whatever role that was, and let him act as he likes for the good of the AFL, the club, whatever. Okay, and just say we've got confidence in you, and, you know, go about it, because he from what we know of him, and we don't know him very well, but from all his actions within the club and interviews and things, he's a very shy, emotional character, but, you know, terribly driven. And if he is going through issues with identity post-footy, you know, sometimes people need more help, you know.
I think one thing's for certain. The fact is that, you know, since that Caro article, everything we've heard and read in that time afterwards, it just appears as though this is even more complicated than what was first thought, and that's upsetting.
Are you saying Caro's made it harder? The solution to something, she's actually made it more difficult to reach a point where there could be a breakthrough. And that's not like Caro.
Well, and Robbo. I mean, but that's, you know, the casualties of reporting here. That's what's happened here. When it's played out in such a manner, I think it is great to shine a spotlight on such significant and important social issues. But yeah, I mean, all told, you can't help but think, what has been the true cost of this? Are these parties closer to mending things, to building bridges? Are we closer to where we want to be because of this? I mean, the fact is that the club is trying. We know now that Sam Mitchell has a very personal stake in trying to reach Rioli and mending things, and I think that's great. I do wonder if, as you're suggesting, Tiz, has it been damaged? Has all of this damaged things further? I don't know.
Look, in general, I would say that there's no point in going back over anything or tearing it down or anything like that. build something new and be proud of that.
Yeah, you have to find a way forward. Part of that is acknowledging what happened, absolutely. But they've got to find a constructive way to get through this and get forward. That'll be our episode for another week, mate. Although, mind you, we do have one final question, which I promised I would address. This one from Arriving Virus at Hawk Talk Pod. The real question we're all wondering, what does the dancing stereo mean?
Is that just backup music for the fat lady who's singing at that time of the game?
This, of course, referring to the sign that was held up on Hawthorn's bench towards the end of the contest against the Saints that featured a cartoon image of a boombox dabbing.
Yeah, which incidentally is probably the action that Will Day should have done after he kicked the ball. He'd gone with the dab into Ryder. What I mean by that is raise the elbow straight into Ryder's head.
I think anyone that dabs, that's a 12-week offence right there.
Anyway, look, I thought it meant rhythm, control the rhythm of the game, sort of slow it down.
Yeah, tempo sort of thing.
Bit of tempo footy, you know. Was that what you were going for, or?
Well, what you didn't see is that they also held up a magic eye, did a bit of Where's Wally, just to keep them cognitively engaged, the players. You know, it's late in the game. You got to get those minds working, you know?
Yeah, it's an interesting development in footy, having placards that sort of signify things. It's, I don't know. Anyway, Gil can hang his hat on that. That is a really, really good development for the game.
On that note, we'll begin to wrap up. You might be listening to this episode via some kind of app, maybe Spotify, maybe Apple Podcasts. Now, if you are on Apple Podcasts, you can leave us a rating or a review. Tell the world how much you enjoy our show. We'd really appreciate that. You can also find us on Twitter. We just hit 3,400 followers, a massive milestone. And we're not done yet. If you're not on board, join that community, the best online community of Hawks fans out there. And you can be part of our Facebook family too, facebook.com/HawkTalkPod. And we're on Instagram, of course. And lastly, as always, we'd like to extend a big thank you to those that support us via Patreon. And just on that, we'd like to give a shout out to our latest proud, passionate, and paid up Patreon subscriber. Welcome aboard, Chris. We really appreciate you being on board with us. It's this kind of support, Tiz, that, you know, really helps us do the show week in, week out. And if you're out there and you do want to join up, all the details are at patreon.com/HawkTalkPod.
Now, I have been speaking to a couple of mates who've been thinking that perhaps Easter Monday isn't a go this year. I would like to say, got to be there. They deserve your support. Those first couple of weeks and the new things they're trying, got to be there to celebrate how much they're doing for the team.
Well, it's as we said, you know, in the lead up to this season, if you want to say you were there, now's the time. You got to put in the hours. You got to stand there. You got to cheer on the boys. So you can say you were there before it was cool. I can say I was there in the mid-2000s, you know, especially the 2003, 2004. Those were dark days, mate. But I know I was there and I was cheering on the team, and that made the good times even sweeter.
Now, look, if Ned Long gets called up this week, I will remember that passage of play for years, that VFL passage of play that, you know, was him putting his hand up effectively to get into the lineup. And if he emerges as a high-quality talent, that will be the moment. And I was one of about 15 who stood and applauded.
It's like a GWS game on Mother's Day all over again. Now, we should give a plug for the Easter Sunday training at Bunjil Bagora, Waverley Park, that is, Sunday, 17th of April, 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. So in preparation for the Easter Monday clash against Geelong, players will commence training at 10:15 a.m. Get along, watch the boys train. There's plenty planned, of course, including kids' activities. You got partner activation. You can get your membership sorted, your Hawks Nest stuff, and visit the museum. Plus, Tiz, a visit from the Easter Bunny.
Oh, the actual Easter Bunny. How'd they get him? That's a hell of a gig.
I just want to get the chocolates on Monday. I'm not worried about Sunday. Oh, boy. So I take it you are getting along Monday then. You sound like you're keen. I'm certainly keen. You just don't miss a Hawthorn-Geelong clash because you just never know what's in store. I know what we fear is in store, Tiz. I think we fear an absolute mauling at the hands of the Cats. But we know, and history informs this very well, that anything can happen against this side. You can have an absolute classic. Don't worry about that.
Look, we have a game style that could trouble them. Collingwood got very close. They're not unbeatable, Geelong, by any means.
And wouldn't it just be absolutely terrific to see this young mob towel up Dad's army? You just never know. You got to be there to witness it for yourself. It'll be really pleasing if it came to that. That's another edition of the Hawk Talk podcast done and dusted. We'll be back, of course, to wrap up all the action of our Easter Monday clash with Geelong. That's Monday, 3:20 p.m. We'll catch you next week. We are a happy team at Hawthorn.